It's been an eventful few weeks, especially past few days, etc. And so I just wanted to touch on a few things that have taken place and just get different thoughts on it. We're gonna have a few people join the panel at some point. Um, I know my guy Dre in the chat. He's gonna be joining us soon. I'm gonna make sure he gets the link. And we got another, not surprise, but I'll let it be a surprise at this point. Coming, my guy Sway just joined. Let's see, Sway, you there, bro?
Yeah, I'm here, bro.
All right, brother. So the first thing that I wanted us to touch on is, the elephant in the room, the Highland Park shooting. Why did it happen, and could it have been prevented? I'm just curious if you guys have any thoughts on this. Well, first of all, obviously, I do want to actually say my condolences to all the families and just everybody um, in that town who had to endure this. It's terrible. Like the latest story I was reading about is the father, I think like Kevin McCarthy, I believe, who died protecting his son, and then like both the mother and the father passed away. So um, now that baby is basically orphaned um, as a result of this loser. So yeah, I'm just curious. Do you guys have any theories on why it happened? I'm not trying to get us to go down conspiracy theory rabbit holes here, but I'm just curious. Like I mean, they have revealed his name. We have learned some stuff about his online personas and stuff like that. So I'm just curious if you guys have any thoughts on why y'all think it happened, and do you think it could have been prevented? So I'm gonna just start with Cheeky. What do you think, Cheeky?
Yeah, can it be prevented? I don't know, man. I don't think so. Um, if people just got mental health issues, then they just have them. You can't. I don't know. It's one of those things where you can't necessarily predict something like that happening. So making things stricter as far as like legal gun ownership and things of that nature, then you know I don't know what to say because he got them legally. So yeah, it's just a predicament that don't nobody really. I don't have a real answer to be honest with you.
Okay. Um, Sway, what do you think, Sway? Do you think the Highland Park shooting, the mass shooting, we're talking about the mass shooting, I believe at this point the number is 7 people passed away, and I believe it's like 30 plus people injured. And this is in Illinois. So yeah. So Sway, what do you think, Sway?
Um, I mean, one of the things I guess I've learned from this channel, I'm pretty sure when it comes to gun laws, I've always been, under the assumption that, I guess get rid of guns, make it illegal or make it, the police shouldn't necessarily have guns or, limited guns and more training and the guns should be on the black market, which would lead to a higher price, and then young people like this wouldn't be able to afford, or broke people wouldn't be able to afford, and then rich people wouldn't want to buy because they have more to lose. The guns that people use, if it's $42,000, little kids or teenagers can't have guns, and the people who can actually afford a $42,000 gun probably wouldn't do a mass shooting. um, but I've come to the realization, talking to you, that criminals will be criminals and they will get the guns regardless. So I don't really know if there's any way to prevent it. There's always just going to be random people in the crowd that can have a gun and do as they please. So as long as we have gun laws and this, what is it, the Second Amendment, or I think it's the Second Amendment. Um, you know, anybody randomly can have a gun, and there's no real countermeasure other than frisking or you know uh, metal detectors for every human being that comes to any of these public events. And I think, as we know, that would in itself probably bring some confusion or concern. But I think in the long run, the only way I can see prevent it is if you frisk or metal detector everybody, and that'll probably increase the risk of stopping it. But like I said, there's always ways for criminals to be criminals. You know what I mean? They could hide amongst the security. They can hide amongst, anybody, I guess, that has the approval to have a gun. They can create fake passes. I mean, it's just, guest passes, what is it? Media passes. Like, their criminals will be criminals. So, like I said, I don't really think there's any true way to stop it, but it's very unfortunate. I think our country needs to take this with a little bit more concern than it's just another mass shooting, because over the past 10 years we've had so many, especially with school shootings, mass shootings, terrorist attacks. I mean, United States is just so big that unless we increase police or increase military force, it's just going to keep happening. Like I said, I don't really see any way we can have stopped it. Maybe if the officer was there to prevent him from opening fire more, but that's just circumstantial. Like I said, there's no real definitive way in my mind that you can stop a criminal from being a criminal. So that's just my thoughts.
Okay. Jedi, what do you think, Jedi?
Yeah, I just want to add like clarification, if I may, because I think like a lot of people were kind of confused. There's multiple shootings that was happening at that day, and they didn't know which the perpetrator was, at least
Do you
what he
realize
looked
how
like.
sad that is? But go
Yeah,
ahead.
I know, right? I'm not. You're right. It just, um, again, the severity of this situation, again, it just, leaves you speechless sometimes, right? But, yeah, the person name was Robert Bobby Crimo the third, um, and he had, apparently had an affinity for the number 47. That was the 47 victims that happened um during that parade in Highland Park, and he was identified with having number of tattoos. Like you see, if you know the picture I'm talking about, but he had number of tattoos, and yeah, see, he just had there's not really speculation about it, but he displaying a number 47 on him, whatever, and number he chose place is right beside his eye. But again, not to get into conspiracy theories of it, but that's what the shooter, that's what his description is. So, but in terms of like what was his motive and everything, I have absolutely no clue. I could, like, to me, like, just you look at his picture, he just seemed really distraught and very like ill to me. But to me, to talk about the whole thing with with gun violence and everything, saying that well we can have metal detectors, we can have other stuff like that. Again, like, let's say even remove guns all, like the days people just strap explosives on them and then they just blow up. They've been doing that all the time. I think that people just still have a motive. They're gonna find some way just to do something. Um, Now in terms of how this is becoming almost weekly, in our country, uh, and also like really in our culture, that I really don't know what the solution is. Um, and but my thing is just like I'm just kind of making sure everybody just be safe, like during those holidays and stuff, because like it was a day for me still going to the movie theater is peaceful for me. But obviously there was in the past there was no shootings that happened there. Now we can't go to a parade, or at least just have time watching fireworks. We have to also be on guard 24/7. Yeah, so I think again, talking about no what coulda, shoulda, woulda, I don't know. But again, this whole situation really just leaves me speechless.
What do you think, Cam?
Yeah, I also don't know why it happened. I think it's hard to like pinpoint why, because you're not going to be in that person's head. We don't know how crazy people think unless maybe you're crazy yourself. I don't know, but also, like, could it have been prevented? I don't think so. I think that well, in this case, maybe possibly, because he actually put things out like on the internet. So it's possible that if police, I don't know how they didn't catch all of his like YouTube posts and things like that, but and also he had, like, I was watching this news clip that he had posted like a video 10 months ago of like the route that the parade was on, and so he clearly was like planning this for a while. So I don't know, like, I feel like he was like putting down breadcrumbs for people to catch him, or he knew that like people will see this afterwards. So I don't know. I think people might do this for some sort of recognition or attention or something like that. I'm not really even sure, but I don't think that it can be prevented in general, because like when you start like maybe like pathology pathology. Can you help me with this word?
Pathologically.
Pathologizing.
Pathological. Which one are you trying to say?
But then with the
I know what she's
Yeah,
trying to say.
Yeah.
Pathologizing.
Pathologizing. Thank
Okay.
you. When you start pathologizing people, it gets pretty tricky, because when you just start looking at children and say, oh, okay, fine, cruelty to animals, okay, that's a little strange. Setting fires, I think that's less strange. And then even less strange is like peeing the bed consistently. I think that's less strange. So it's like, if you just put those things together and say, oh, that kid's going to be a serial killer, I mean, that's just silly. I just don't think that we're able to do that. I don't think there's some sort of serial killer gene. I just think that anybody can snap at any point. It just takes a one bad day for people to be like, I'm just gonna kill you today. Me and Jonathan like talk about how it really just like it just takes one thing for people to snap. I mean, people snap on the highway all the time. Just randomly, people getting cut off. People have shot people in the car, like just for nothing. And so I just don't think that that we can like predict these things. I don't think that we can prevent these things. Like the interview with the guy's uncle was like, he seemed normal. I talked to him the day before. He seemed completely normal. Nothing was wrong with him, and then the next day he shut up the parade. So I just think it's unpredictable for the most part.
So it's kind of interesting to me that you all are basically saying no, and to me it's like the biggest yes I could ever think of, that this was entirely predictable. So if you actually go and listen to like his content and watch his, so for me, I have this thing where I do not like people like this. I don't want to give him streams or anything like that. But luckily there are people who have basically re-uploaded and reshared his stuff, and I'd rather watch it from their stuff than give him, let him get paid off of this. But so I'd recommend, if you're gonna go listen to his stuff, like listen to it through another outlet, and not, well, his YouTube channel is down now anyway, but his Spotify was still up. But I'd rather not listen to his Spotify and give him streams. But anyway, if you listen to his content, but also the fact that he had attempted to delete himself before, and the police had been called on that, and they had actually, when he had attempted to delete himself, they found like a arsenal of knives, that if you read into the case, that they found an arsenal of knives that basically he was planning on using for some purpose. And the police took all of those, and then I guess they ended up giving them back to him, my understanding, because they couldn't charge him with something. I forgot the details of that, but basically, there was enough there that I think I would say the police, or I should say investigators, dropped the ball here heavy, right? And obviously I don't want to just put all the blame on the investigators, on the police, but I do think they do share a big, brunt of that blame there, because when you have somebody that attempts to, take their own life, they're obviously a danger to themselves and potentially others. And in fact, like in a lot of, in some states, you can, I'm pretty sure this is jurisdiction dependent, but like you can even force somebody to be, what's the term? Like to be basically put into a mental health facility. I forgot the exact term for that. But basically, you can force somebody to be in a mental facility or whatnot. And nothing was done in this case. And then for him to be able to purchase a firearm legally after the fact, to me, is like the major red flag, because part of, anybody who's actually gone through the process of getting fingerprinted and doing all of that in order to be able to even own a firearm, one of the main things federally is that, there you go, committed. There you go, Dre. So you can actually force somebody to be committed, right? If they're clearly a danger to themselves, and potentially others, right? And so it seems to me like that this was a case where he should have been. And especially if you combine that with the quote unquote art that he was creating. I mean, he literally had a video about a school shooter situation, like on his YouTube. He literally had a video of that. And to me, that's like insane that somebody like that, I guess it's a slippery slope to a certain extent, but if you are posting videos that have a school shooter theme to them, I would not be upset if the government put you on a watch list. I'm just saying, like, if that has that if I don't care how dark you want to get and how emo and all of that, but if that's the kind of theme of stuff you're posting, I think he should have definitely been on some kind of watch list. And just by being on those watch lists, when he went to buy the firearm, he should have been flagged. And so to me, this is a perfect example of like how a lot of times when this stuff happens, we focus on the guns, but this is a perfect example of there were signs there. There were signs there in a number of ways, and it just seems like they were ignored, and it seems like people didn't take them as seriously as they should have. Whether it's his family and also law enforcement, should have taken him very seriously. At a minimum, he should have definitely ended up on a watch list. If you see the types of videos he was creating, he should have definitely been on the watch list. There are people who have been on watch lists for less, right? So to me, that kind of blew my mind when I learned that piece of information. Like, wow, like he attempted to take his own life and he was posting these types of videos. So to me, that was the scenario. And a few people keep saying conservatorship. That's not what we're referring to here. We're not talking about conservatorship. We're talking about being committed in a mental facility. That's a very different scenario. Like, you're not taking conservatorship over the person. You're just forcing the person to basically be committed and have to be evaluated and whatnot. So those are two different things. But go ahead, Cam.
So I agree with you. There were obvious signs. I mean, clear as day. And, like, I'm just wondering, right, when these people, maybe they get smarter and they stop posting things online. Like, do you still think it's like able to be prevented, or like what other signs besides them like literally telling on themselves would we have to kind of prevent these things?
So that's a great question, Cam. In my opinion, this is just my take on it. When you look at people like this, it's clear that there's an attention aspect of it, right? And so I think he wanted that attention, right? I think he wanted that attention. I think he's probably, I don't know what his motive is, but my take, again, just by looking at his content, my take is that he wants to be famous somehow. And in his case, his way to fame is by being a basically spawn of the devil. That's his way to be to fame. I don't think he would want it. I don't think he would want it otherwise, right? I don't think he would want it otherwise to not have that kind of exposure. So people like that, if they're gonna post it in the first place, they're gonna post it. Like, I don't see. In other words, it's not like a matter of strategy. It's not a matter of like I'm being strategic about it. It's just a matter of I want the attention. I want this, catalog of work to be there, after I do this, whether I live or I get locked up, but I want this catalog of work to be there. If you read the works of like people who have actually studied serial killers and whatnot, like Dr. Helen Morrison and whatnot, like that tends to be one of the major motivations for serial killers is fame. And them just wanting to have that kind of attention, where even if that means them sacrificing their own life for the sake of that, which it's hard to wrap your mind around, but it makes a lot of sense. So just them getting that kind of recognition, especially if in their mind they think they're very smart, then they think you're gonna look at them as, wow, like he was so sophisticated that he thought this through this way and what. But in a lot of cases they're not really that smart, and in some cases they're actually a very high IQ, but in a lot of cases they're also not really that as smart as they think they are.
Right.
But anyway, that's my response to your question. Did I answer that?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? I mean, it's pretty short. Did he get gunned down by multiple police officers? No. Okay. So another white school shooter, mass shooter, terrorist, whatever the fuck, still hasn't been, murdered or in cold blood or whatever that you want to call it. But it's hilarious that, if you're black and you run away, you're easily killed. So I just this is
I
one of
don't
the
think it's that simple, Sway.
well, this is just it's just hilarious to me when people, these mass shootings happen and they're never killed on the spot.
Sure, but
They're always taken into custody.
Sway, here's the problem with that. I understand the perspective, but it's a very misleading way of looking at it, because did he resist when they tried to apprehend him? He didn't. He didn't resist. So it would not make sense for them to. It would not make sense for them to just shoot him for the sake of shooting him. He stopped, like he was driving the car, and they stopped him. He did take him on a little chase or whatnot, but then like in the car, right? Which, by the way, most people survive car chases up until the point they either crash or get out and then run, right? So he took them on a mini chase, from what I understand, and then when he finally stopped, they apprehended him without, like, he didn't resist. So if he didn't actually like resist them, why would they shoot him? And not only that, like not only just him resisting, but also did he attempt to, like, did he show that he was a threat to them? Like, I just think, again, I think there's this
what he showed that he was a threat. He was a threat. It doesn't have to
at
be
that point in time.
shooting
No,
at a
no,
police
I'm not
officer.
saying.
He was a
Wait, I'm
threat
not saying
to
he's
the
not a
people.
menace to society. Again, this is where nuance is important. Take your personal feelings out of it, right? Look at it objectively. Hold up, look at it objectively. At that point in time, when they were apprehending him, was he a threat to them physically at that point in time? This dude, like, did they see any firearms present? Did they see him turning towards him, turning towards them, et cetera, et cetera? Like, you can't just look at it from the lens of, oh, he's a mass shooter, so therefore he's a threat. But at that point in time, when they were apprehending him, was he a threat? That's the only rational way to look at this. If you don't, then you're not taking your emotions out of it.
I mean, I guess you're somewhat right. I'm not going to take my emotions out of it. If a person ends up shooting and killing and harming a bunch of civilians, that's open fire. I'm shooting them on the spot.
So you think hold up, let's see where this slippery slope goes. So you think the police should be able to be judge, jury, and executioner?
I think if somebody
just answer my question. Do you think the police should just be able to be judge, jury, and executioner?
That's a very disingenuous question.
What you're saying has no nuance to it. It's just very disingenuous and black and white. If a person commits a mass shooting and kills people and harms people, they should be killed on the spot. They should be taken as a threat, like any other person running or resisting.
But if they're not a threat at that point in time of apprehension, it doesn't make any sense. Way. Yeah, again, you're still putting your emotions into it. Listen, if you want my personal opinions, I don't think this kid should exist. But this is the slippery slope we go down, because you could take that same narrative and say, okay, what if they're chasing somebody that is accused of being a attempted murderer in the hood? Right? They haven't, that person hasn't gone through court yet. Hold up, that person hasn't gone through court yet.
Two different things.
That person hasn't gone through court yet, but because there's this idea that he committed that crime, should the police also do the same to him?
Like I said, JB, if someone commits a mass shooting, they should be shot.
Okay, I heard what you said, but respond to my point, because the scenarios are literally the same. That person would be considered dangerous as well.
I said they're not the same. You're talking about attempted murder and somebody who committed a mass shooting. They're not the same thing.
That's the point. Is about threats. It's not whether or not that person is attempted murderer. And okay, fine. Let's say they're being pursued on murder, on straight up capital murder. Let's say they're being pursued on those charges. Should the police get to just execute that person? JB. Yes or no?
Capital murder on what sense?
Just capital murder. Why does it matter? It's still capital murder. Where
explain the scenario.
What?
Explain the scenario. Because talk to me like I'm a
okay. Listen, random brother from the hood, right? They're accusing him of shooting somebody and killing them.
Okay.
The police, hold up. Let me explain it. You asked me to explain. Let me explain it.
Up because you said accused. If I know this person has mass shooted an entire
again, I'm saying accused. Hold up. See, Sway, you gotta let me finish. I'm saying accused because, again, we're in a country where it's innocent until proven guilty, right? It's alleged. I'm saying alleged. We're saying alleged for Sway. Hold up. We're saying alleged for this guy as well, right? Now, do we personally believe he did it? Yes, but I'm saying if we're looking at this objectively, if you have somebody who is an alleged murderer in the hood and the police are chasing after that individual and then they stop that car, should the police get to just take that person's life? Yes or no?
An alleged murderer, no. But if he's a murderer and he's caught and everyone knows who's
everybody's alleged, Sway. See, this is what
he's
I'm
not
saying.
alleged.
You guys
He
are
did
speaking
it.
for your emotions. Everybody's alleged in this country.
And guess what, JB? This is an emotional topic. So I acknowledge it. Hold on. Wait, JB, I acknowledge that I'm speaking from emotion. I'm speaking from an emotional person.
This is crazy. This is why it's impossible for people.
Well, this is my opinion, JB. I'm not a law enforcement officer. I don't make up the laws.
Okay, but Sway, you do realize what you're doing actually doesn't help, right? Because what you're doing is you're making it impossible. You're making it impossible because you sound like the rest of these protesters, right? You're not looking at things objectively, and so you sound like the rest of these protesters because you're not looking at things objectively. And so when people just look at it from their emotions, nothing will change because you make it damn near impossible for police to do their job. Because on one hand, you're saying they should just end somebody's life because that person was a threat, right? No, but then on the other hand, when a young black man, right, who actually shot outside his window, but at that point in time when he was running away, did not shoot at them, suddenly it's a problem. It's the same shit. Like you don't want them to have ended his life, but this guy, because he's white, suddenly you have a narrative for it. How the fuck does that make sense?